Hello! Welcome to a new episode of Mega Manga Mondays. I am Jason Hahn, and we are talking about Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 180. Welcome. I'm very excited to talk about this one. It's called Sendai Colony Part 7. We've ended on some pretty epic cliffhangers, and we're in the middle of a huge, pretty awesome battle in this series. But before we get into it, I'll introduce my other buddies who are with us. We are all writers for Screen Rant, which is an awesome website for comic books, video game, and movie news. Definitely check it out for some interesting articles about new series and new chapters for other series. It's a good time. But yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself, Ben.
Yeah, I'm Ben. I write for the comic section of Screen Rant about manga and DC and Marvel comics. And Jujutsu Kaisen is one of my current favorites, so I'm excited for the discussion.
Hell yeah. How about you, Steven?
My name is Steven, writer for the comic side of Screen Rant. Mostly write about manga, as well as Sonic the Hedgehog and Transformers, Beast Wars, etc., but big fan of Sonic. So that's my other big passion besides manga.
Yeah, I keep meaning to have a side discussion with you about it. I actually just rewatched the first movie with the little guy the other day. You excited for Sonic 2, the movie?
Oh yeah, I mean it's definitely gonna be very different because I know IDW they actually released, they call it the prequel, like quill as in
Oh boy.
prequel comic. So it's kind of like yeah. So it's like 5 mini stories leading up to it, and one of them is Knuckles starting his journey looking for Sonic, and the other one is Tails looking for Sonic. So it's kind of introducing us to those new characters, and they're very different already from them. So it's interesting though.
Yeah, low key, I need you to send me those. Those sound very interesting. All right. Anyway, opposite of Sonic the Hedgehog, Jujutsu Kaisen. We picked right up from where we left off last time, and surprisingly, I thought that Cockroach Guy or Euro might make an appearance, but this was one of the fastest chapters I've ever read. It felt like it was only a few pages because the action was just so good. Like it was fast and frenetic, and everything that happened in this chapter felt like it took place maybe in 10 seconds.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, we continued our fight with Yuta versus Pompadour Guy, and I think it's the conclusion of this fight too. But the art. Yeah, go ahead, Steven.
No, I was just going to give props to Ben. Like you were saying in the last episode, that that you could see Yuta and Pompadour Guy becoming friends afterwards. And even though like he's defeated, there were some instances of that where it seemed like like that Yuta actually teared up at certain points, and Pompadour Guy was also being really impressed by Yuta's power. Like it's you kind of called it out, and it's cool that it's playing out that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, Gay loves his bromances, and this seems like it's got the makings for a good one. Because, Pompadour Guy is still alive. He's standing scorched at the end of the chapter, and clearly, out of energy, but they're both smiling. They're both happy, So,
is he standing? I thought he was on the ground.
No, Oh, that might be on the ground. I interpreted it like...
Oh, it looks like he's standing. Yeah, I see what you're saying. It kind of looks like it.
Now that I'm looking at it more...
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
I could see either.
Yeah, because actually, in the last page, it's all white behind him.
Yeah.
And so that could be that's interesting.
Well, yeah, now the last panel is saying that his stomach's full, so it's I think that's the end there. But great callback on that, Ben, because that was actually one panel I loved. It was a couple pages in, but it was before they were about to launch their lasers at each other, and the narrator even goes in saying like, Yuta probably won't find any meaning in fighting, but just the look that his new bro friend just gave him melted his heart. So they're digging on each other, and Oh man, the Yuta's reflect or copy ability and just the pacing of everything, making you think that like, oh yeah, Yuta's out of energy, and oh nope, it's already replenished. I just love how well Gege is able to balance like the narration versus the the mental conversations our characters are having with each other, or in their inner monologues essentially. And a lot of the times that can make it feel like way too cluttered and just like, wait, is this narrator or a conversation going on? I'm not sure. But it all just like contributed to each other in this chapter and just helped the frantic 10 seconds of this fight like flow so well in this. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I'm actually just a big fan of just the usage of narration. I know a lot of mangaka don't do that, but it actually just makes it really more realistic. Like instead of the characters like saying, "I'm almost at full power, but I will soon be there soon because I'm powering up." Like instead of them saying what they're doing, it's the narrator who's explaining it, which I appreciate that.
Yeah, and
with a certain amount, like I'll real quick,
Yeah.
Ben, just because like Hunter x Hunter is the one that
Oh,
doesn't do it
I was
very
just
well in
gonna
my
bring that
opinion.
up.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because especially like watch every reflecting on Hunter x Hunter, the Kamehameha Ant arc, the Chimera. That would be a whole crazy story there. The Chimera Ant arc has some fights where it's literally just like a whole page dedicated to white background and nothing but the narrator just giving excessive text, and it just like kills the pacing. And if you do it right and don't overkill it, then this happens where it exactly what Steven was just saying, like it just really helps accentuate the fight and doesn't make it seem like everyone's talking just exposition about their power levels and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
that's interesting. So I never saw. Oh, sorry.
No,
I was going to talk about.
you can get
Oh no, I was just saying that it's interesting because I didn't read the manga for Hunter x Hunter. I just watched the anime, but I know a lot of people were annoyed even by the narration in the anime just because it's the narrator guy talking for so long.
Yeah. I was actually I one of my series. I'll get really into a series, then I'll only let myself watch it if I'm like at the gym or if I'm working out, so it like inspires me to exercise more.
That is awesome that you do it that way.
Yeah. And Hunter x Hunter was my last one, and yeah, there's times where I'm like on the elliptical and that narrator is going, and I'm like falling asleep on the elliptical. It was brutal.
Yeah.
But yeah, did you have something?
Yeah, and I think the one area where like, or not the only one area, but one area where Jujutsu Kaisen really improves on that sort of problem with narration is that in Hunter x Hunter, a lot of the time the narrator would say what the characters were thinking. Like they'd be like, "Oh, Pito was scared of Gon or something," right? And here, we have Ishigori thinking things throughout the fight, and he actually thinks them. Yeah. It's not like the narrator being like, Ishigori was confused about how Yuta.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Which I think really, helps the flow of the chapter. Gets different voices in there, and it sort of gives us a better glimpse of Ishigori's mental state than we'd get from just a narrator, saying what his mental state was.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. And, kind of going off again with another manga, just really quick. One other mangaka, I wouldn't have thought that it would work because usually the writing has been kind of stilted lately, but in My Hero Academia, actually, it's been fueling one of my theories, where there were earlier on, we got to see, we were like giving front seats to Ochako's mind, like what she was thinking when she was with Deku. So we knew exactly how she felt. But ever since her meeting with Toga, Himoko, during the paranormal liberation arc, we haven't been inside her mind ever since. So it's just interesting how other mangaka are using narration.
Yeah, and it really just shows, like, I think how strong of it depends on how strong of a writer they are.
Yeah.
Because I mean, especially with My Hero Academia, um, you're always not really sure if the narrator is a person or if it's just a disembodied narrator. Like while reading this chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, I never once was just like, oh, somebody's telling me this story. Who in this manga is giving all this insight? But it's just like nothing but helpful information. It's like not filled with, the personality or anything like that. Um, and it kind of makes the disembodied voice a support rather than a crutch.
Exactly. Yeah, you really need it in jujitsu because there's a lot of times where it's just really confusing. Like when they're especially going into domain expansions, like you would be completely lost if Gege wasn't giving you some background. So he's kind of using because there's some mangaka like they just like you figure it out type of thing. But no, I've actually been able to appreciate Jujutsu Kaisen a lot more just because we know like he's filling the gaps for us like in certain areas, like usually even in other comics as well. Like they used to do it in like the older comics, like in the 90s and 80s, where they would have that little editor's note at the bottom saying, oh, we're referencing issue 80 or whatever. But newer comics don't do that anymore, and even in manga, so it's like hard to connect the dots. But Gege is one of those that does these flashbacks, like, oh, they're referencing what happened in an earlier fight. So it makes you enjoy it a little bit more.
Yeah, and also like the funny thing is that there actually is an in-universe explanation for the narrator. In that, like at the start of an arc, there's always like a report going on about like what happened in those events, right? Where it's like, here's the report on the culling game or whatever, and it's like this date, this time, this happened, and so like you can interpret the narration as sort of going into a report, but you get narration like Ishigori's gaze melted Yuta's heart, and you're like, maybe that's not in the report, but theoretically there's that structure already in place, so it's not just like completely a narrative technique.
Well, I'm actually glad that you mentioned that too, because it goes back to what you were saying before, Ben. Like you were, hoping that this would kind of grow into a bromance, and at least myself, I think Jason also was like, I don't see that happening, but with this particular like that narration, it really, I was still a little iffy on that bromance happening, but that narration is actually what got me all on board. Like I just wanted him gone. Like I felt like he was more of a filler character. But now that we have that, it's like it makes him so much more likable, and it's a very very good use of narration in that particular sense.
Yeah. And he's now my favorite of the curse technique users in this section of the culling game.
Really? Yeah, no, more than Uro?
He surpassed Uro to me here. Now, to be fair, Uro might be dead, so unfair.
No, just stop speaking.
But he has to. It's a podcast. Yeah, I agree. I think that this really helped solidify their relationship. However, I don't know. I think it's set up where he could, come back, but I think that this might be the end of him in this arc. Like, he looks really beat up.
Well, I think this section of the calling game arc is pretty much over. So what I'm thinking is that like now that this fight's wrapped up, we'll move on to a different colony, and then Ishigori could come back later, on Yuta's, like fighting alongside Yuta on the side of good later on.
He is officially graduated from Pompadour guy to Ishigori.
Well, his Pompadour's gone now, so.
Yeah, he destroyed it himself.
Oh man, I didn't even notice that. Yeah. Oh
yeah, he looks
pretty symbolic actually.
Yeah.
Because the Pompadour, like I not that I know Japanese culture, but is the original hairstyles with biker gangs,
Yeah.
right? Like it's kind of like a rebel type of thing. But that's actually very interesting. That this could be actually another representation of his changing character.
Yeah, and that's a really good.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but it's almost like every time he used his attack, he was channeling it through his pompadour. So I'm wondering if he like it just I can't shoot lasers anymore because my hair's not on fleek. Like he has to go to a salon to be able to use his abilities now, or
I think it would be.
Or maybe now that his hair is all over the place, he'll just shoot lasers in all
Yeah, I was
directions.
gonna say, I think it would be really cool if like he's like my new technique, and it's like just laser shooting in all directions out of his head and stuff.
Yeah, that's the only way I could see this fight keep going. Is they say my stomach's full, now I need to use all this energy or something like that. And
Yeah.
but I feel like everything, especially with this bromance, has been fulfilled.
Oh, yeah.
Like he keeps on talking about wanting a good battle after he has already had a fulfilling life, and he got all of that. And but yeah, I mean, just like eating food, there's a whole digestion thing. So he might have to get rid of all this energy that he's claiming, or he's been talking about, like, oh, I need to have a full stomach. I need to have a full stomach. And it's kind of like, okay, well, are you saying that just so you can feel fulfilled from a good battle? Or are you, is maybe one of your conditions for your powers not met until you are properly beat up or you feel satisfied? So those are about the only ways I can see this fight continuing to go.
Yeah,
do I want it to, though?
I don't think
I don't want it to.
Let's move.
Yeah,
kind of pushed me a little much.
Yeah, the only way that I would like this scene to keep on going, if they choose to stick around here, is if Euro comes back and tries to take them both out, and or another. I mean, have they established that these were all of the culling game players in this dome?
I think these are the major ones. Yeah,
okay.
But
because Yuta can obviously keep going. Like he can replenish his energy like it's nothing. Like he seems like the most broken character besides Gojo, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, Rika's.
Well, actually,
go ahead. I mean, Rika's sort of dissipated now, so that might.
With one hit.
Well, one hit at the end of a big battle, but yeah.
Yeah, well, they were even saying Ishigori just needed one punch, and she was fully manifested, and that just splattered her before Yuta jumped up and hit him a bunch, and then he just buckled down and grabbed him by his scruff of his neck and just let him get blasted.
Yeah.
But some great panels. I'm excited to make the thumbnail for this one. But what would you guys like to see happen next? I know, Ben, you were kind of saying moving on to another section.
Although there'll probably be, or maybe not probably, but there could be one or two more chapters after this in this section, just sort of wrapping things up. Sort of in the first, sort of colony arc, it ended with Angel showing up, right? I could see something just happening here. And then we cut away to a different colony.
Yeah, I think there might be at least one more chapter left, because with that last bit, it kind of prefaced the whole next, group of characters with Gege introducing, Pompadour, Euro, and Cockroach Guy. There was remember those few pages that just introduced them. It had a picture of them. So I'm feeling he might stick with that same layout. And it definitely helps to get you hyped for the next section. So I'm hoping that this story will at least continue on for one more chapter, and then that chapter ends with introducing the next lineup.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I absolutely think that that's where we're going next too. It's just I'm a huge fan of this arc so far. They just haven't missed yet. Like every section of the culling game, every new character introduced. Excuse me. Some characters are more interesting than others, but I can't really say that there's been something I've disliked, other than some powers being very complex. But I'll just attribute to that me being dumb. But exactly what you were saying earlier is like the narration really helps, and without it, like imagine the Megumi fight we just had. Like if there was no explanation and they're just in the gym and suddenly like, oh, we're super heavy now, like wait, what?
Yeah.
Like I would have been even more confused, and I was already kind of confused.
No, the narration of the domain expansion battles wouldn't work at all because you wouldn't fully appreciate how it was working. Because I mean, I thought that was the one thing that I want Megumi back, just because he, at least for me, he is my favorite domain expansion user, just because he's been using his domain so like innovatively, like more than anyone else. Like he was able to, because before it was always about like if you had two domain expansions, it was just a tug of war. But he was the one where he used his domain expansion in a way to poke a hole in the other one, just so that he could get inside and then get all of his friends out. Like that was never done before, and like I just really, I don't know. I want Megumi just for that reason, and I'm actually wondering, like, because I know Ben, you did an article. We were talking about it before this episode about how this kind of shows how smart Yuta is. I'm wondering which one is smarter now. Like, after you're putting those in perspective, just because I've always been a big fan of how Megumi fights with it, especially with his domain expansion. Like it's just so innovative. But then, like you were saying in your post, which you can talk about next, he really had to go above and beyond to do what he did.
And it's interesting because like Megumi did a big brain move to beat Registar last time with like the elephant and like he had to think, he had to juggle so much, like because Registar's ability was like kind of non-intuitive, and it was a very different method of like fighting style that he had to do, and he had to like manage his animal resources well, which is really, really very strategic fight. And here we see Yuta do something similar, where like Yuta had to sort of calculate the path of the laser he deflected, and like time his battle, maneuver Ishigori into place to get hit by that beam. And that's just incredibly impressive, especially because if you look back through the panels after he deflects the beam, he's not looking up. So he's not tracking where the beam is going with his eyes. Like he's just relying purely on mental calculations here. And
and
even
also proves that too, because the cells are showing where his eyes are looking, and he's looking down.
And it's incredible. And like it skyrocketed Yuta into, I already liked him, but now he's like one of my favorites because that's just such a crazy feat.
Well, the brilliance of his calculations with the laser, I mean, with the speed, knowing that it was going to, turn in the air, like it was going to come back down. And just all that timing is super impressive. The thing that is the most impressive to me, though, is how fast his copy of how quickly he's able to use his copy ability with other people's powers and use them as effectively as he is. Like, because he only saw Euro's like space-time changing things like a couple times, and within real time of this like arc, I mean, this has all taken place. This whole fight's only been like 10 minutes. And just I'm kind of going through too, and even when Yuta grabs him and you see the air around them like pressurized, getting ready for it, he's still looking down at the ground and he just says, "We're done."
I love that.
It's so
it's
cool.
Like walking away from an explosion.
Oh no, he didn't walk away from the explosion. He
That's true.
he took part
right
of
next
it.
to
Like I was Yeah, I'm paying attention. I'm trying to see if his hands got messed up, and in the final panel where his hands are kind of messed up. So like he just loved it. I
Yeah,
just
man.
loved it.
It,
Um,
and it.
And
but
he
yeah,
didn't even.
go. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay,
You
yeah.
go, Ben. You got it.
It kind of shows how much he's grown beyond Rika as well, right? Like Rika's down for the count at this
Yeah.
point, and he's still going strong. And like if you looked at him in Jujutsu Kaisen Zero, I mean, I don't think that would be the case. I think if Rika got defeated, he would just be like, "What do I do now?" Um,
Yeah, well, and that's actually how, like, I felt like his first test for that was when he was fighting Cockroach Guy, because he didn't want to use, like, because Rika was busy protecting the citizens, and he didn't want to show all three of them that he could do that reverse curse jutsu or
Yeah.
technique. So he had to rely jutsu. He had to completely rely on just hand-to-hand combat, which he would have never been able to do before. I mean, like I felt like I almost did an article about it that kind of proves that he's one of the best fighters, just because all of his crutches were gone and he had to rely on himself, which was interesting. And that's also why I wanted to see this domain expansion battle, because it even though like it ended very prematurely, just because I that would have been like the best way to kind of calculate where Yuta is in regards to Megumi, because Megumi's like, he's my ultimate fighter right now. Like he's like the greatest technician, especially with how he uses domain expansions. And I was very interested in seeing how he would use it, just because I mean my favorite domain expansion battle was actually when he was fighting Reggie Star, even though Reggie Star I don't really like him that much, because it was like the first time whenever you're in a domain expansion, the whole battle has always been about what's going on in that barrier. Like the outside world doesn't matter. No one like thinks about what's going on the outside. And Megumi was able to, like, because he knew like how his the drawbacks of his domain expansion. He was able to calculate where he formed it, knowing that there was the gym swimming pool beneath, so that feeling of being sucked into the shadow pool would emulate that feeling when he's in the actual pool outside of the domain expansion. Like that was a really massive moment, because he was able to, like, oh yeah, falling through the shadow pool is going to feel a lot like swimming through an actual pool, which kind of really messed up Reggie Starr, because when he was in the water he was like, what's happening? Wait, I thought I was out of this.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's why I'm very excited to see Yuta use a domain expansion, so we can see just how he uses it, because he does have the capability of maybe outperforming Megumi.
Yeah, and I'm very curious on the obvious fact of just like what his abilities would be in a domain expansion, because I everything you were saying is like, without the crutches, without Rika, he is obviously developed as a great fighter, and especially with his copy ability. I almost wonder if his domain expansion is going to let him like keep some of those abilities, and he can just like use any of the abilities that he's seen before. But that would be so broken. Like this guy's a beast.
Yeah. Oh, that's why I'll let you go after this, Ben, really quick. I'm also just interested, like, too, because Rika was actually outside of the domain expansion, so it's kind of like Rika is the one who empowers him, and usually a domain expansion is supposed to be like your place, where you can't miss and things like that. But it doesn't include Rika, so it's almost like an opposite domain expansion, like, or it would have been if he didn't rely so much on Rika. It's just like an interesting concept. Like, I just like to see what it would look like, because Rika was like the reason why he was such a good fighter for so long.
And like I think it will be, if my theories about it are correct, I think it will be very interesting, because I'm thinking that it will be based on reverse cursed energy.
Oh, that's a good.
So
that's
I could
good.
see something where like anyone trapped in that domain, like when they try to use their curse energy, it'll like reverse, and that would be very trippy to see, and could throw off his enemies in very interesting ways. And so I think that would be really cool if that's the case.
I think you called it. I think you called it. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, he's going to be like the Kakashi of this series. He's going to be the copy ninja of this series. And oh boy, if he got a Sharingan, this would be over.
He didn't even need a Sharingan, I think.
Yeah, he doesn't. All right, well, I think you guys nailed it. And Ben, so far you've pretty much nailed every like anytime you've had like I think this is what's going to happen. The next week we're like, well, Ben called it. This happened. This
hopefully. Like.
Are you Gay's personal?
No comments. I might have a personal line to him. Yeah.
NDA. But yeah, I completely agree. I think that we have at least probably one more chapter just to wrap up this. Let the dust settle in this area before we move on to another one. Because it'd be a great transition into. I mean, yeah, I know last discussion we were trying to rack our brain. It's just like, okay, so we got through Itadori, we got through Megumi, and now Yuta. I wonder if we'll go back to Itadori because we've been the furthest away from him so far. So after he finished his fight with the lawyer, because that was only like, no, he had to beat up the dude with the windmill hat, which that was
forgot about him.
Right. The lawyer was so iconic. But,
Yeah. So I'm kind of hoping we either go check in with the Tengen team, and because you're not going to give like two good fighters there and then not have anything happen. So there's got to be maybe Kenjaku will go right for Tengen.
What I'm hoping for is that we see the people that they recruited at the Fight Club. Because it would be weird if they recruited them and then it's just like they did everything that they're going to do off screen. Like I'm hoping that we get more development with them and see a bit more of their abilities and see how good they are at fighting, powerful enemies like these. And so that'll be fun. And also that'll be a battle where like that'll be a battle where I could easily see it setting up, our allies, or I could see it setting up enemies, like who just come in and like kill these guys. Because we don't really have an attachment to these people, and they just got introduced, and so like I could see it going either way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right, because it's been a long time since we've been introduced to those new characters, and we got a good like maybe 10 chapters introducing those characters. So it's probably about time that we had that payoff. Like, you're going to introduce characters like that, you must have a plan for them. And we just got done having a solid time with all of our main pro tags. So story pacing wise, I could see it going several places from here, but I guess I think we have a break next week, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, like I mean, it sucks, but he's been getting like his health has been on and off. So I mean, as long as like if he needs to take the break, then he should. It's like one of those things where like I want you to keep releasing, but I don't want you to get sick. I don't want you. It's
like one of those.
And
we've already sort of seen, like in the Maki versus the Zenin clan fight, some of the art put into that was very unfinished because he just didn't have time or didn't have the energy for it, and
they really needed to switch this schedule, like that. Find a new setup, because like it doesn't seem very healthy. Like there has to be something new. Like it's like these people are so freaking smart and creative. Don't make it hard to like, because they actually like have these like huge scholarships and stuff, like helping kids become mangaka. And like it's like this whole like nurturing thing that would be amazing if they had it in America or anything like that. But it's like then as soon as you become a mangaka, it's like you're treated horribly.
Just
Like
work
it's
the
like it's like yeah, it's like oh man, like they have that first part, fostering all of that creativity, and then once you get there, it's
Yeah,
like
I honestly feel like they should let these
Yeah.
people set their schedules. If they feel like they can't get it done on a certain week, just delay it. Let them get it done the next week.
Well, who knows? I really hope that they do transition a little bit because we've started to see that with anime. Like growing up, so many animes were week to week, and some still are, like One Piece. But then there's some animes like Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen where they did like one season and then they release it and then they take a break to make the new one. I would love it. I wouldn't hate it if they did the same thing with manga. Like, but unfortunately, I think it's a lot like America in the way of like they probably have a whole bunch of higher ups in the company like, oh, it's just the way we've been doing it for 50 years.
Yeah.
Why change it? It's like, well, because a lot of people are dying and having horrible like health choices and but then you have people like Oda who are
he's just a beast. Like
it's
I've
ridiculous.
I've been ignoring One Piece for forever, but like just like since I started reading about him, it's like, oh my god, what is this guy?
Yeah,
like,
he went.
Jeez,
he went on like 1 month break over the entire course of. That's like the longest break he's had since One Piece started.
It's been 25 years. Is apparently how long they've been going. I think we're approaching the 25th anniversary of One Piece. And it's just well, anyway, we actually just had a fresh episode of One Piece come up on the podcast, so go check that out if you're a One Piece fan.
There you go, plug that in.
Yeah, it's
about
like
another fast-paced fight just like this one. So.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, both of the newest chapters, Jujutsu Kaisen and One Piece, had excellent fights this week, and I'm not sure if next week is going to be able to top it. Because I know, especially with JJK, unless now that Ishigori's stomach is full, if he's going to keep on fighting, or if it's just going to end. But One Piece. We got some exciting manga ahead of us, and I'm glad that we were able to start this podcast and get all this going. So thank you guys.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Well, any final thoughts on JJK 180 before we get into plugs?
I mean, I thought it was interesting that Rika has that like 5-minute limit now. Like there was that little thing where it's like she's only there for 5 minutes.
Yeah,
like,
and my heart broke a little with seeing like the Yuta like as she's dissipating. I was like, I know she's not there, but still that. Oh.
Well, she has the will, so like she's still feeling.
Yeah, it was just a series of like 3 panels, and it's actually one of my favorite panels of this chapter was Pompadour guy or Ishigori. Like his face is all bloody and he's got a punch winding up and his eyes are whited out and he's just putting like everything he's got into punching Rika. And she straight up like One Punch Man splats against the building behind her, and all you see left are the teeth saying Yuta. And Yuta wasn't bothered by this. He instantly goes in with a flurry of kicks and keeps the fight going because the laser's up in the air at this point. So it's just so much awesome paced action. I loved the panel of pretty much after Yuta reflects the blast, he kind of gets Ishigori surprised and kind of off of his guard. So he hits him with an attack. And you're like, oh wow, good thin icebreaker attack. We see some. Was the name? I have the chapter up, so I know the name of it. I haven't memorized all of these things, listeners. And it was a pretty substantial hit. Like he's got blood coming out, and you're like, okay, what's he gonna do now? And then the next thing is literally Rika like just smashing him. Like the panel almost looks like his back is broken because he got hit so hard. And then we get the bloody awesome punch panel. Like,
that's my favorite from this chapter. That is an epic drawing.
And,
I love it. He looks mad. He looks really creepy, like almost like,
and he's like
Joker almost.
And throughout the chapter, Gay does this, but he's like outside of the panel too. Like he's overlapping with another panel, and like Gay does that so much with this fight over the course of this chapter, and it really gives it like this free quality that is really great.
Yeah, actually, that's been on my brain as I've been like going through this panel and thinking about how am I going to build this thumbnail, because he's like going off frame so much, and I'm like, that's going to take extra time to like loop around all that.
Luckily, the one frame, the one part that's not going off panel is the "thank you" and "my stomach's full" thing, which could be pretty good. If, them looking at each other, satisfied.
Right. Yeah, we'll see. I'm trying to come up with thumbnails that don't necessarily spoil like the coolest parts of the chapters. But we'll
you can
see.
do like the Harry Potter-esque beam battle.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's so many fresh ideas because there's so many great panels on this. But I love that you brought up that in some series, like the mangaka's health might not be there, so some panels aren't finished, it seems like. And I'm reading Black Clover, and
Black Clover,
there's some panels that look like way too underdone.
There was like almost, it was that for a couple of chapters actually, but it was only for that particular. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was a while ago. It was like before the elf arc, I think.
No, I think it was during.
Yeah.
Did it ever get fixed in the Tankobon release? Because I know that sometimes when they release it, they.
You know what? I don't think so, because even when I was reading it, it was like years after the chapter came out, and I was reading it on the Shonen Jump app, and I was just like, "Wow, this seems like concept art rather than like completed art." So it was kind of weird that they didn't like go back and fix that, because I know that they do that on some like volume releases and stuff like that. I could be wrong, but anyway, I unless you guys have anything else on this chapter, I think we might go ahead and go into plugs. That's
it for me.
Plug away.
All right, prepare for plugs. I am Jason Hahn, and this has been another episode of Mega Manga Monday, Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 180. You should be able to listen to our other manga discussions on anywhere you listen to podcasts, like Spotify and iTunes and that kind of thing. So check us out. I also do a comedic YouTube series called Honzy and Friends. I play video games with friends and stream and all kinds of stuff. So if you're into that kind of thing, definitely check it out. Steven, you got anything you want to recommend or plug, man?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say this really quick. Because you mentioned Black Clover, so I have to say Black Clover.
Yeah,
I'll just say without giving anything away. It's the thing about Black Clover that I think a lot of people don't realize is, like, especially when you speed read through it, you'll see something happen, and it feels, or it seems like he's just fueling a cliche, or just following a formula. But it's actually, like, in all of those instances, just reread what you're reading, and you'll see there's like really deep nuances in each interaction that might seem like, oh my God, is he really doing this? Like, it's very important, like, especially with the latest chapter. Like what I love, and that, without giving anything away, I like how he's breaking the mold, and how a lot of manga focus on keeping these mysteries from readers for forever. But in Black Clover, we have these very unique situations where the reader knows everything and the character knows nothing, and it creates this extra dynamic that you would never experience in another manga. So it's one of those things. Got to read Black Clover, people. Yeah. It's so underrated. So underrated.
It is definitely worth it. I'm like 200 and so chapters in and working on getting caught up, but it's a fun manga. Like, every time I'm reading it, it feels like it's as if I was writing it. It's like somebody who's a huge fan of so many other series and like grew up with it, and it almost feels like the guy behind it like is just trying to make the best thing he can, learning from all the series that he loved growing up, like Dragon Ball Z or Naruto. Like there's a lot of Naruto I feel while I'm reading it, and that for me that was my series growing up. And it's not so much a copy or like copying off of. It's more of like taking the aspects that really worked for other series and telling your own story with those lessons learned.
Or taking it to the next level, like taking a spin off of something and giving it its own twist that makes it really wholly unique. I can't articulate how much he's like like a lot of, especially on Twitter, a lot of people are like saying, "Oh man, Black Clover sucks. Tabata's got to stop."
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the people who say that have just seen a couple episodes of the anime and just been like,
"Yeah,
I find Asta annoying," and then just
yeah."
There's a lot of people don't have the patience, I guess, for it. Because I was one of those people too, especially with the English or just some of the voice acting in the first couple episodes. It's a lot of yelling, and that's why I started reading it. And I definitely was enjoying the read more than I was enjoying the anime. But I heard that the anime gets better with the yelling, or starts to not focus on it so much. So I might pick up the anime.
That's funny because that's how I was feeling about One Piece. That's interesting.
Oh, really? Yeah. There's so much, especially when you try English. Like I can't. There's a lot of like English voice actors I just can't get behind, and performances wise, Naruto is one of them. But watching it in Japanese usually is the better call. Sometimes they do it right, but Ben, did you have anything
I
you wanted to
recommended
recommend,
this on the One Piece podcast we did earlier today. But so the author of Chainsaw Man is releasing a 200-page one shot next week. So if you've heard about Chainsaw Man and you're not sure about it, now's probably a perfect time to get into it because you'll have another one shot to read by the same author right after you catch up. So. And
absolutely,
it's a great series that also breaks the mold.
It's outstanding
in a very different way, but
God, yeah.
Oh yeah, I am very excited for more Chainsaw Man. I said it in the One Piece podcast also in response to you. That was like one of the last few series that I started, and I just couldn't put it down. I went through the whole series in a very short amount of time. But they're actually the same company that did the first season of Jujutsu Kaisen is doing the first season of the Chainsaw Man anime.
They're also adapting Hell's Paradise, which is like the last member of the trifecta.
Yeah, that's
of like dark
I haven't
demon
heard of that one.
Sort of curses like manga that were in Jump for a while. So it's
that manga that has it reminds me of almost like Suicide Squad in the samurai era.
It's
very cool.
It's so cool. Yeah, it's a great.
Well, Studio Mappa does great work, and I really hope that its employees are being treated well. Because they deserve it. Especially after the JJK movie,
I've heard,
they just knocked
unfortunately,
that out of the park.
It's not the best place to work, but it releases a lot of great anime though. So, but it's.
Yeah. Well, I'll throw my name behind the Chainsaw Man recommendation as well. Very excited to see that keep going. And I don't think the world is ready for the Chainsaw Man anime, because I think once that comes out, that is going to, that much like when Demon Slayer was coming out, every time a new episode was coming out, everyone was going nuts and losing their minds on Twitter. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, it's Chainsaw Man. I think it's one of the few manga that has gotten I'm not saying it's like exactly like Berserk, but it's like the feel of like the existentialism, like is
Oh yeah.
so close. Like Chainsaw Man is just there. That one scene, I won't say anything, like in the middle where it's just like the violent, like it's just like there was no reason for this amount of violence. Like it's just like it's like like when you read it again, it's like, oh my god, it's just like violence for the sake of violence. Like, it is a I can't say enough. Like I think it's my favorite.
And it's got
right
like,
now,
and
down.
it's not
But,
just it is hyper violent, but there's also a beating heart at the center of that violence. And
exactly, that's exactly what I was gonna say. It's like one of those things where like the violence is all at the top, but if you read deeply, it almost reads like a novel, almost like a narrative novel. Like the amount of time he puts into it, and he does perfect what a lot of mangaka don't do, is just show and don't tell. He does that beautifully. Like oh man, I love it.
Oh yeah, we can't say enough good things about it. And the last thing I'll say on it before we go is, other than the gore and the cool action and the existential dread that series is able to give you, just it's so well written too. Like there's some twists, especially near the end, that I still am recovering from. Like there was one particular character's fate still, like,
are you talking about Halloween?
I feel like he's
no, that was fantastic. But no, I'm not going to say anything until we stop recording, because it would give it away. But it just made that moment, and it's near the end. It is just so shocking, and you're just like, I cannot believe that I just read that. I had to stop reading it for a couple days actually, because it was just so.
And I'll say that
shocking.
That applies to a couple characters,
wonderfully put together,
in my opinion.
yeah. So read Chainsaw Man. You'll enjoy it. But I think that'll about do it for this episode of Mega Manga Monday, Jujutsu Kaisen 180. Again, thanks for listening, and check out other channels. And I look forward to talking about 181 when it comes out with you guys.
Awesome.
All right, well, have a good one, and check out other stuff on the channel. And most importantly, have a good day.